All right. So this was one of the topics that was requested when I had put out, I took a little break from writing and blogging and coaching in the middle of this year. And, when I was going to start diving into, I was like, what are you guys looking for? What do you need? And I'm pretty sure it was you, Alita, that were like, accountability. Like I need more people in my life who are going to hold me accountable for my goals. And so I thought, okay, well, we'll do a call on that. And I have, Shell's actually my accountability partner. So this is perfect that she's on a call too. But I thought, well, let's do a call on that. But then when I started unpacking, because, I don't pretend to know everything about everything. So I just started going researching at the perfect place for research is Pinterest, right? And so like 6 a.m. I'm in my bed, like researching accountability partners, like why they're important, how to make them even better. And so I figured I'd go through and then I take all that and then I kind of dump it on a page for what I think would be useful for our community. So I'm going to go through just a couple things. I took some notes on this. I'll probably end up putting like in the blog or in the newsletter, because I feel like it is something that I think it's a word that we kind of throw around or that we almost crave, but have we even like really defined what that means and how to make it work, make it better, right? So first thing I did was I looked up accountability. Like, what does this even mean? And it says to be held accountable. I was like, well, thank you, Webster. That's like not helpful at all, right? Like, it's one of those words that's defined by the actual word. So then when you look up accountable, it basically said expected action or responsible result. And I was like, wow, like if you really think about when I'm being held accountable for something, it's an expected action. I've said I'm going to do something and it's an expectation, or I am now responsible for the result that I said I was going to do. That's a whole different vibe than like, hey, I want an accountability partner so I can have someone to chat with every week, right? There's a different layer. And so one of the things that, in milling this over, I thought, well, what does this even mean? I kind of broke it down. So there's basically, in my mind, 4 different categories of accountability, right? So we have, starts with our personal accountability. Like, are we ready to do what we're going to say we're going to do? Because I really feel like you can be in 10 accountability groups, but if you're not personally responsible, you're still not going to get anywhere, right? So you have to lay that foundation of being a woman of your word, and that you're willing to do what you say you're going to do. And that I think is also rooted in clarity. Like sometimes like, oh, I really need an accountability partner. Well, what's your goal? Well, I kind of want to get fit. Well, what does that even mean? Right. And so I think your accountability relationships are going to be that much stronger when you are super clear on what you want, why you want it, and how you're going to get there. Because it's different to be like, hey, I want to go to the gym 4 times a week for at least an hour, and I want you to check in on me, every Saturday. That's super clear. That's beneficial for you and for the accountability partner, because then they know what to check in on you with, right? Other than like, hey, how'd this week go? Well, it was okay. I did okay. I went for a walk. Like, it's the more measurable and specific you are, the better it's going to be for you and for your person to help you. So yeah, definitely rooted in clarity. Get super duper clear on what you want. And another thing is with this accountability, this broad umbrella, I really thought about what are the areas that most women are seeking out accountability. Fitness and health, business and goals, personal goals, spiritual walk, right? Either prayer or accountability for certain struggles or behaviors. And again, and then behavior change. So even say like alcoholic anonymous, or things that there's like things that people really need a partner to walk through them with, right? Depression and things like that. So there's all these areas. It's not just, I think sometimes we think fitness or we think business, but there's so many things that you can have accountability for in your life. So because of that, like, what is the specific, clear, measurable thing that you're trying to achieve? Once you have that on paper, what are you going to commit to doing? What are the actions you're going to commit to doing? Then go seek out an accountability partner. Because I think sometimes we want to, I'm going to mention this later, but we want to pay the trainer to make us fit, but the trainer doesn't make us fit. The workout makes us fit, right? So sometimes we think, well, if I have an accountability partner, that's going to make me more successful. Well, the partner doesn't make you more successful. You putting in the work does. And so that's why the foundation of all this has to be your personal commitment to do what you say you're going to do. And It's the idea that, this person or group or coach is going to come alongside you. They're your pacing partner, but they can't run your race for you. And so there's no substitute for you doing the work you say you're going to do. So I think that you have to lay the foundation that it's all accountability starts with the personal level. Okay. So then the next level, I kind of think of it as expanding. The next commitment level, I think, is a group accountability. And, we see that sometimes with fitness challenge groups or mastermind groups or like prayer groups, success partners. So it's more of a group setting. So the benefit of that layer of accountability is that you're surrounding yourself with like-minded people. We all know and have experienced that we are who we spend time with. And that's even like, if I hang out with someone who has a Southern accent, after 5 days, I'm speaking like I'm from South Carolina because it just rubs off on you. So does everything else. So does negativity. So does, good eating behaviors. So does, the words that are coming out of our mouth and the thoughts that are going in, the people around us influence that. And so being in a group setting, getting around like-minded people that you want to be like, right? So there's another difference of like, well, I really want to be successful in business. And so I got into this mastermind and I found out, well, like, wow, these people are successful in business, but their marriages are falling apart and they're completely unhealthy, or they're, I don't know, doing things that are illegal. Like, you have to define the whole picture, right? Who do I want to be like, and make sure you're in that kind of community. And so that might take a little while. It's almost like dating. You might have to try on a couple of different communities to see where you fit, because I know like a lot of the ladies in our group are women of faith. And so they want to be in a group of like-minded women that they can say, hey, can you pray for me? Whereas, in say a secular business accountability group, you might not feel comfortable doing that. So finding people that you want to be like, who inspire you to be better. I always use the analogy of the gym. If you go to the gym and you're the fittest one there, you're not going to push than if you go and you're like not the fittest one there, because other people's behaviors rub off on you. And we learn things. So I know even when I'll watch fitness videos or I'll go to the gym, I see other people doing things that I'm like, I'll try that. Right. So we gain knowledge. Or if you're in a spiritual group and you're like, oh, I love how this person prays, or they're reading this book, or this is how they're doing their quiet time. We learn behaviors, right? So we're going to learn things by being in these groups. We're also going to feel encouraged and supported, right? Because you're in that community that most people are there for that reason. They want to grow, they want to support, they want to encourage each other. The one negative, a couple of like, positive and negatives to these groups is they're often unclear and not specific, right? So you might be in a group that's like, hey, we're all here to, like, for example, I'm in a nutrition accountability group. It's great resources, but there's no specific goal. There's no specific target. It's just like, hey, we're here to grow and learn. Now that's one layer, but if you're specifically working on a goal, that one-on-one partnership might be that next layer. So we're going to get to that. So they're often a little unclear, or it's easy to be a voyeur and not a mover, right? So you can be in a group and watch other people kill their goals and watch other people, making progress, and you're just a voyeur. You're just watching, whereas you're not a mover. You're not a mover or a shaker yet, because you can kind of fade into the background. So I think if you want to be in a group accountability, you got to get in there, you got to dive in. And I think if you really are trying to push for something or to be held, super accountable, then that next layer is finding a person. And so sometimes that the benefit to being in that group is that you can then, that's almost where you're like dating, right? You're like, oh, I like this person. I like this person, right? So you almost like try some people on for size and be like, hey, do you want to be an accountability partner with me? And so that's kind of a way to kind of get around people who are like-minded, so that you can then find that one-on-one personal accountability, which is kind of the next level. And I feel like this is one, Shell is my accountability partner. We've been accountability partners for, I don't know, a couple years now. And so I'll say that we do some things well, and there's some things that I'm going to go through on this list that you're like, we can improve on these. So I'm learning too, right? But the one thing I want to say is you might need specific accountability partners for different areas, right? So Shell and I might be accountability partners for our business, whereas like my friend Angela and I might be more for fitness, and me and Alita might be prayer partners. right? Because we have different connections on different things. So it's not like one person has to meet all your needs. And actually, if you're pushing in certain areas, wanting to grow, it might be better to have just a person that's specific to this lane. Like everything connects, but also people have different gifts. So if you have a friend who's like an awesome, like has the gift of encouragement, she might be who you need to go to when you're struggling with your marriage or with, you know, some personal issues. Whereas you might have another friend who's like a, you know, on fire business chick. You're like, that's who I need to connect with on my business, right? So knowing that there's might have multiple for different areas of your life. But then within that partnership, so we kind of talk about where would you find this person? Usually when you're around other like-minded people. And I think part of it is you really have to ask. It's like going on a date. Like, would you like to be my accountability partner? And I think part of that question is getting super clear on what that looks like. So I would define the roles, right? Because sometimes we think of accountability partners like you know, two oxen who are yoked together and they're moving in the same direction. Well, sometimes you might need someone who's, you know, like even in the fitness world, who's, you know, already where you want to be and you're trying to come alongside, right? And so what's the role? Is this something where we're pacing together? Is this something where I need you to help me get to where you are? Or, you know, you might be that partner who you're then helping them get to where they want to be. So defining the roles, defining the goals, like what am I trying to achieve out of this accountability relationship? What am I trying to achieve in a time period? So like I had said to Shelly, you know, we've been accountability partners for quite a while. I don't think we started out with the beginning. We didn't start out with an end. And we've kind of gone up and down where sometimes we get lazy on our calls and things like that. But I feel like if I was going to start over, I'd be like, hey, let's be accountability partners for the next 3 months. We're going to work on these specific goals and then we'll evaluate it and see how are we doing, because you might be in a partnership with someone that's not getting you anywhere. Shell's awesome, right? I'm never giving you up, but I'm saying you might be. I've been in other accountability accountability groups that were like 3 or 4 ladies that we didn't go anywhere. It was just a social club. You know, we never advanced on our goal. So if you kind of have this 3-month goal or 1 month or 6 weeks, whatever it is for you, you have an end date to go like, is this working? If it's not, how can we change it? What is working? How can we expand on that? Maybe we've met our goal and now we want to make a new goal. So it shouldn't be never ending, right? That's more like a friendship. But if you're going to get specific for an accountability partnership, I would say get specific on the goal and the timeline. Some things you want to look for is someone who's not going to let you slide, right? And I always say, don't grace yourself out of growth, that it has to be compassion coupled with commitment. Because you want someone who you're going to be like, you know, my kids have lice, my dog has diarrhea, and I have the flu. Obviously, there's compassion, right? So, but there's also the commitment. And so this phrase came to my mind. It's a no judgment, no excuse zone, right? So if you are going to be completely honest in this relationship, that you're going to show up and be like, hey, I didn't do the work this week. I said I was going to do this and I didn't do it. One, you have to be open to say, I didn't do it. And your accountability partners, no judgment. She's not gonna be like, well, you're horrible. She's not gonna say that. But you say like, why? How could you do that differently this week? You know, is this really important to you? Like, have those conversations that are going to keep you committed, not make you feel bad. Like, that's not the goal, but you also want someone who, that's why you're in this relationship, is so that you can have someone who's going to be like, why not? Why didn't you do the work? Right? And I think that's what helps you get to that point where you're moving forward. Because we can have, you know, sisters and moms and friends who will just, you know, soothe us all day long, like, oh, it's okay, you're still amazing. Well, yeah, thank you, but I want to reach this goal, and so I need someone who's gonna be like, yeah, you're great, but you said you were gonna do this, right? And so there's that different, that you want someone who's not gonna let you slide. You've agreed to this, right? So you've agreed to give feedback and receive feedback, and to realize that that feedback is not an attack on you as a person, it's an evaluation of your behavior, right? And so that's where you have to have the open communication to be like, girl, I love you, but I love you enough to tell you what, you know, if you really want to do this, are you going to do it? And it's like, I've gotten to this point when I talk to women now, because I think because I've been doing this so long, it's like my grace meter is so low, because I think, and I love women, I do, honestly, but I think there's just, it's excuse after excuse after excuse, and no one is telling them, like, you either want it or you don't, right? Like there's that tough love. And I've always said in love, right? I'm going to support you and cheer you on and, be your biggest fan, but I'm also gonna be like, what are you doing? Right. Um, so that, yeah, compassion coupled with commitment, and then also making the plan for your connection. Like, are we going to talk once a week? Are we going to talk once a month? Or are we going to, talk every 3 months, whatever it is, and making that time non-negotiable. So if it's Friday at 10, it's Friday at 10, no matter what, barring, there's always that little exception, but for the most part, it's not like, well, I'm just kind of tired today. Be committed to your growth, that you're going to be committed to your call, and respect that person's time because they've carved out that time for you. So keep the connection. So that could be in person, a coffee date, or it could be a phone call, non-negotiable, but also keep them focused and concise. There's a difference between an accountability call, like what's your high, what's your low, what you're working on, what's the progress, what went well, what didn't go well, than a social call. Like save that for happy hour, save that for, after church donut time. Like keep your socialization, not that you're not friendly with your person, right? Because you're invested in their life. But if you have an hour call, 49 minutes of it shouldn't be catching up on the family, right? Maybe 5 minutes should be, and then after the last five, bookend it with the socialization, but you're there for progress. You're there for a reason. And then the last thing is, like, when you're an accountability partner, be who you would want, right? As accountability partner, be who I would want as accountability partner, right? But seek who you need, right? So for example, like, I'm going to show up as the best accountability partner that I would want Shell to be for me, right? So that's one layer, but seek who you need. So, this is a good example is in fitness. I'm fit. I work out 7 days a week, right? So when I'm seeking out an accountability partner, I need to seek who I need. Well, there's very few people in my circle who are fitter than me. This sounds egotistical, but it's not. I mean, I've been working out for 20 years. And so for me to find someone that's going to help me level up, I need to seek that specific person, right? And so whether that's in your spiritual growth, you might have, a mentor mom in your church that you're like, I have to seek who I need. Like, I know she would be good for my growth, right? Or in your business, where your accountability partner shouldn't be someone that you're dragging along with you. It should be someone that inspires you. So in those relationships, with that idea of being equally yoked, you almost want to be yoked with someone who's a little bit stronger, a little bit further. And of course, you're going to, go like this. A lot of times in a relationship, when one of you is down, the other one is up. But seek who you need. Just don't take anyone. I know that sounds sad, but this is not just a friendship. Like, you can have plenty of friends. When you're looking for someone who's going to help you hit your goals and level up your life, you got to seek out who you need. So be who you want, seek who you need. And then at the end of that commitment, whether it's 3 months, 3 weeks, or whatever, reevaluate and see, because sometimes, the accountability partnership, you might have already hit your goal, and then it moves into a friendship. Or you might find that you're not growing with this specific group or person, and you want to kind of be like, okay, I'm going to try something else. No hard feelings, right? People change, people move on and do different things. So that's where, is this time you're investing your time in here, is it worth it? Is it progressing to where you want to be? Okay. So we had the personal accountability, we had the group accountability, we had the partnership, one-on-one. And so then the fourth layer is professional, right? So that's when you're paying a coach, you're paying a trainer, personal trainer, you're paying a mentor. So the difference with that is sometimes, because people have paid money for it, they take it more seriously, right? So if you are, you have a girlfriend that is your accountability partner, you're like, oh, well, we won't really talk about the goals this week. We'll just talk about, the Bachelorette and all that stuff, right? You take it less serious because it's free, right? When if you have paid a coach $100 an hour, you're like, I want my $100 out of this, right? And so creating that mindset with your friendships, your friend one-on-one accountability, that you're taking it that serious. But if you are paying a coach, get your money's worth out of it. If they give you homework, do the homework. If they recommend books, read the books. Like, this is an investment that you're putting into your personal growth, just like a degree or just like a certification program. Get out of it what you put in it. But the other layer, which I shared this earlier, is sometimes people think just because I paid for it, it's going to work for me. And you can pay all the money in the world for training courses and coaches and fitness accountability groups and never do the work, right? So buying a treadmill doesn't make you a runner. Running makes you a runner, right? And paying for a trainer doesn't make you fit. Doing the workouts make you fit. And so, when you're trying to get to that next level, it's not just about how much money can I shell out for a professional coach. It's how much of the internal and external work am I going to do to get to that next level. So that's more that professional layer. So then my last little points was when, where, and how. So when do you seek out an accountability person? When you are ready to hold yourself accountable. Because sometimes we will often look for external, like, well, I start and stop all the time. So if I just had that person who is going to connect with me, I could do it. Well, you know what? That person who's going to connect with you, you're still going to have to do it. So why not create those behaviors before you get to that relationship, and then it will be even stronger. So when you are ready to hold yourself accountable for your actions, then seek someone to help you get to that next layer. Where can you find someone? I think honestly the best place is in community, right? Community of like-minded people where you see someone who is where you want to be and befriend them. I remember this is years and years ago. We were at a base in Turkey. That's where we lived. And one of the older women, she had said how she'd gotten to the base and she saw the chaplain's wife and she's like, she's going to be my friend. And she basically courted this lady and said, we're going to be friends because we're like-minded. We believe the same thing. We have these kids the same age, and she sought out a relationship, and they were best friends. I mean, for years and years beyond this. And so sometimes I think getting in that community and seeking out the women, you're like, you might have to court someone. You might have to share what you would need from them, but also what you can provide for them, right? And so sometimes it is a little bit like dating, right? And to get a date, you have to ask. You have to be like, hey, do you want to go out with me? I'm so glad we are all way beyond that phase because it sounds awful from what I understand these days. But when you're courting out an accountability partner, it's kind of like you have to be brave enough to ask, would you like to be my accountability partner? And I think when you can have that clearly laid out, what that means, what the commitment is, what you can kind of bring to the table to help them, that I think will help that person, one, not feel overwhelmed, and also have just clear boundaries. So that's what I got. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts because you guys have both been in accountability situations. So tell me what you think. What's the biggest struggle or your biggest tip when it comes to accountability?
Well, for me, before you, I was in several accountability groups and setups and stuff like that, and it didn't work. Um, like you said, it was more so like social and nagging and whining and complaining, and it was like, okay, are we going to do some work? Like, how are we going to get around this? And it was never a solution involved. It was always complain, and I don't like this, and this is this, and it was never any progress or anything. So I think over time, I never set a time frame, but over time, I was just like, I removed myself from that
Mm-hmm.
situation. And I totally agree with you. When you're around certain people, you have to be around the people who you want to be, because their moods and their feelings and their thoughts and stuff, if you're around that person a lot, it's going to eventually rub off on you. And so that was something that I had to learn too. So for a while, I just kept to myself because I always felt like there's nobody out there who works like I do or see things the way I do. Because I can see a negative situation, I'll be like, but this, and then my mind can immediately flip and go on to the positive and start working on this. And so I always felt like that there was nobody out there like I'm by myself. And so years ago when you asked me, and I remember because I would always watch you like from afar, and I agree, when you're around the community of people and you're looking, you're like, but then I don't know, I think it was one of the retreats or something, and you were talking and you were sharing, and I was just like, so there is somebody out there like me. So I was like, so when you asked me, and I was like, yes, finally. But so I think definitely too, you have to be observant and watch who you want to work with. Because I know even with us, we've seen like some months where we're both down and we lift each other up, or one of us is up, one of us down, and we pull each other up. And then there's some days when we're both on it and we're like going. And so I think that's important too, that you got to know each other and how each other vibe and stuff, so you'll know how to work with each other. And I think too, I love the whole no judgment, because yesterday, talking to you yesterday, I was like, I know Becky is not going to judge. She's going to speak from the heart. And I know that I could talk to you about this. So I think that's important too. And I agree. The grace is like very little for me too, because I think we as women, we have to stand firm with each other. We have to be honest with each other, because I think over time we get so used to people patting us on our back and telling us it's going to be okay, but we're never really solving anything. So I think your accountability partner have to have grace when she needs it, but she also needs to be standing firm with you. And like, if you're doing something, like, girl, don't do that. This is not
Yeah.
working. So I think that's very important to have that person.
I think it's also like if you had a friend who was doing something that was detrimental to their health or their safety, like they weren't wearing their seatbelt, you would have no problem being like, you need to wear your seatbelt. That's life or death, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes, like, let's put it this way, like friends who are really, really unhealthy, sometimes they need out of love someone to say like, this is detrimental to your health, like, I want to keep you safe by being like, hey, let's work on this, right? And so I think it's we minimize some of these little goals. Like, it could be like a sales goal, or it could be, maybe it's like the last 5 pounds that really aren't detrimental to your health. But if we can take it seriously, if it's something that we really feel like is going to help us be in our best self, we want someone who's going to be like, look, let's you said you're going to do this. And it's just like with your kids, you said you were going to do this, you got to do it. There's no maybe, it's yes or no, right? One of the things that when you're talking, it made me think of, what I know this will be a question: what if I'm not surrounded by women like that, right? What if I'm in a place that I feel like I'm in a small town, or I'm in a community with a lot of negativity, or I'm in a home with a lot of negativity, or my whole family is unhealthy, and I'm the only one, and I'm getting shamed, or I'm getting criticized because now you want to be the skinny one. Or people are mean sometimes, people who well-meaning people that love us, because what happens is, I've heard this analogy, when you start climbing the mountain, sometimes the people at the base are like, where are you going? You're going to leave us behind. No, stay here with us, right? That's well-meaning because they love you, because they don't want you to leave them, right? And that's like a simplistic analogy. But sometimes when you're like, hey, I'm going to level up my business, you're like, no, you're fine, just come hang out with us, we're all good, right? And so if you're in a place where you're like, I don't know if I'm in the right community, I would say try to seek out different community groups. Now, obviously, we're in a pandemic. That might not be the easiest time to like go to a networking thing, or a women's group at a church, or we even, like, our Chamber of Commerce has like a women's group, or the Junior League, or any kind of volunteer. If you go to volunteer where there are women volunteers, you're going to find some amazing people with good hearts, right? And so sometimes I think we just have to like get ourselves out of our, well, I wish they were right here, like I wish they were my neighbor. Well, I might have to seek out a little bit. Like, that's one thing I'm super looking forward to, reopening of community. Even like school volunteers. Some of my best friends I've met through PTO, and those are just like-minded women who want to serve their community. And so I would say, if you're looking around, you're like, I don't have anyone like that in my life, previously I said, well, then be that person, like, be your best version. But you know what, if you're the only one doing that, it gets lonely, right? You want to be in that community. We're meant for community. So maybe it really is stretching, see, where can I find, even going to conferences. I've met great strong women at women's conferences. And so that just popped in my mind when you're talking, like, where do I find women like this? That, like you said, sometimes you're like, is there anyone else like me? But sometimes where you're in those communities that aren't, you're like, you feel like you're the only one.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
see it with my team, and that's one of the things that I started back up with my team, is have an accountability group, and the ones who wanted accountability partner, and put them together, because I know the value of it, and I know they're going to have growth. But I didn't want to be like, okay, everybody on the team do it,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that not everybody is for that. And I wanted to give everybody the opportunity that wanted to do it. And there was a couple ladies in that same situation. They're not around people. They don't know anybody, or they really want to do well with this, but they don't know where to start. They don't know who to talk to. And so I felt like putting them in a group where they can find that person or have that person was important, because sometimes people don't know where to go or where
Yeah.
even to begin. So I
One
think,
of the ideas that I have, if this kind of becomes a theme in our empowered group of, people looking for accountability, I'd love to do a thread or an album or something where you can almost put out like, hi, I'm Sally and I'm looking for someone accountability for fitness, or hi, I'm Jane, I'm looking for someone for accountability for my business or for this. And so almost like a little bit of a dating, pool there. Not to say that everyone's going to click or find someone, but at least there's somewhere for people to connect, right? So that's kind of an idea coming down the road. But I do, and I also feel like, especially since we can't get face to face with a lot of people, there are opportunities online to make connections. Like if you see someone who is online that might be, a similar connection, and you're like, wow, I like this person, I feel like I can grow for them, you can befriend them. I know my one friend Sarah in Canada, we became friends on Instagram, and I mean, she's one of the women who inspires me on a daily basis now. And I didn't meet her until like 8 months after we were friends, right? And so there is a huge potential to even do that online. If you are stuck in the area where like, I'm not really in a space that has women face to face that are of like mind. So, and again, hopefully the empowered community, as we grow it, there will be more of that, So what else, Joel? Any other ideas or thoughts?
no, I think you pretty much covered. I mean, I did have a couple aha moments when you were talking, but it was mostly of, now I see why my past accountability, groups and stuff didn't work, is because of those things. I think definitely having a clear understanding in the beginning really does help, because a lot of times, I don't know, is there a thing called social accountability? I feel like a lot of times
Yeah,
people,
that's almost like, it's like a club, right? Like,
yeah,
um, I think part of it is like, everyone wants to belong. Everyone wants to be a part of something. Like we are designed, right? To be in community. So when someone says, we want you in our group, well, of course it feels good. Like, oh, it's like being picked for the softball team in grade school, right? Like, oh, they want me. But sometimes you have to think, like, is this specifically growing me in my area? If this is something, like maybe it is just a social club.
mhm,
um but I think another thing is that I think sometimes people want the accountability to solve the problem of their lack of discipline. So like that to me is like, oh, if I just had an accountability partner, my business would be stronger. Well, if you did all these things, your business would be stronger and your accountability partner can help, right? Like we want that fix. Like we think like, if I just had someone, then I would go to the gym. And scientifically, they say people with accountability partners will reach their goals like 33% of the time more. There is that validity to if an accountability partner will help. But what about the other 3%, 66% that had the accountability part and still didn't meet the goal because it's based in personal discipline, right? And so it's got to be a combination, right, of both of those. What are you doing and what can this relationship help you do?
I think it's very important to understand that your accountability partner is not going to solve your problems and do the work for you. Because with my spiritual growth before, I am where I am today. I remember when I first started going to church, and there was this girl who I loved. You could just see it, like she just oozed this spiritual vibe, and she loved God and the things that she was sharing. I was just like, man, I love that. I want to have some of that she has. And I went to her, not seeking help me get to where you are, was do it for me. Like, pray for me. How do you do that? Like, it wasn't, I didn't want to do the work. I just wanted, it's almost like, I just want you to touch me and then hopefully I'll be like you.
Yeah, yeah.
When she shut me down, I was so hurt, and I was like, well, she's not being a Christian. But I didn't understand what she was doing. She was basically telling me, like, I can't just rub off on you and you become this spiritual being. You have to read the Bible. You have to seek and find God through you. You have to listen to his calling on you, and you have to study, and you have to do all the work to get to that understanding. And so now, being a Sunday school teacher of women, I have women all the time that come in that was Shell, and I'm like, this is how you do this. And so I look back on it now, and I remember years later, I went to her and I told her, I said, thank you. And she was like, for what? And I explained to her, and she just bust out laughing. It's just like, but I get it. And it was that tough love of her telling me, like, no, like, that's not how it works. And I was hurt, but you have to remember, accountability partner is not going to do the work for you. They're not going to snap their fingers and you magically appear and be who you want them to be. They are there to help you make sure you stay on track with what it is. But at the end of the day, you have to be the one who do the work and go out there and seek what it is what that you're trying to find. And I love that you mentioned about the when you pay someone, because I've done several trainings and stuff like that, and then they'll suggest this and this, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, I push myself because, like, I did pay for this, so I'm going to do it. And so once I do, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, sometimes you might have someone speaking to you and you're not vibing, but then they were like, well, do this homework or read this book, and that's what speaks to you. So it's not always a waste. So I think show up 100% whenever you're having to pay for something, and you will eventually see something that will
And I
help.
think a lot of times things we learn are we're like the conduit, right? Like I might read something or listen to something, I'm like, okay, it didn't really apply right this second. But in a conversation a week later, I'm like, I read something about that, right? So we're like the vessel. And that's why I think, when we're pouring in good stuff through what we're watching, what we're reading, what we're listening to, all that, we're filling up our toolbox. So one, it helps us, fix our stuff, but it helps us like fix things for other people. And so, I'm all about pouring in good things and then, utilizing your investment. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, Alita, do you have anything before I stop recording? I know she's gone in and out with the. I see you now.
Oh, I was saying no, I don't have anything. It's loud over here. So.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'll stop recording.